Okay, and welcome back. So I'm going to talk to you about the Gauss-Jordan method of solving matrices. Now before I solve a problem, let me show you some of the operations you can do with the Gauss-Jordan method. Let's say for instance you have a system that looks like this, about 3z plus 4x minus 3y is equal to 1. Let's say you have x plus y plus z is equal to 5, and how about negative 2x minus 3y plus z is equal to 7. Well, you want to get the x's in one column, y's in the next, z's in the last. So in this case here, we can we can exchange the 4x and the we can put the 3z actually at the end. That'd be a lot simpler. So you can write 4x minus 3y plus 3z is equal to 1, and x plus y plus z, x plus y plus z is equal to 5. And this one's already set up, so we can do negative 2x minus 3y plus z is equal to 7. And when you're doing the matrix, when you're setting up an augmented matrix is what it's called, what you want to do is write the coefficients down in the constant. I'll re-explain how to do all this with the following problem, but I'm going to show you just the basics, what you can do. So take the 4, the negative 3, and the 3, so negative 3, the 3, and the 1 goes here. And then this has a coefficient of 1, 1, 1, 5, negative 2, negative 3, 1, and 7. You can interchange rows, so you can make this row first. So we can make row number 2 not row number 1, so we can write 1, 1, 1, 5, and then make this row number 2. So 4, negative 3, 3, and 1, and then negative 2, negative 3, 1, and 7. You can multiply or divide each row by a number, so that way it changes it proportionally. So you can make, let's say for instance you wanted to make this 4 a 1. Instead of interchanging, let's say you wanted to make this row a 1 right here in place of the 4. Well, you can divide the whole row by 4 or multiply it by 1/4. Same as this here, if you needed to for whatever reason, but it's easier just to interchange rows whenever possible like I did here. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to re-explain this with the following example. So let me get this next problem up here. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to set this up in the augmented matrix form. So what you're going to do is take the coefficients 1, negative 2, 3, and 7, and the rest of them, and you're going to write them in this form here. So let me start off this way. So you have 1, negative 2, 3, 7, and you have 2 here, you have a 1 here, a 1 here, and a 4 here. As you can see, the coefficient here is 1, 2, 1, 1, 4. Over here is going to be 3, 2, negative 2, negative 10. So you're going to have negative 3, 2, negative 2, negative 10. Now these are not coefficients, these are just constants, so they're going to end up over here. So basically all you're doing is kind of like erasing the variables. Okay, and you can go ahead and put your brackets if you want. I usually don't even bother with the brackets, it's not even necessary. It's just, for me, it's a waste of time, and there's usually a bar that goes here. So when I do the rest of this, I'm not really going to write the brackets. I'm just going to kind of go through and solve it. But anyway, the idea here when you're using the Gauss-Jordan method is you want the top left corner to be a 1. So let's just say, for instance, your solution is going to be this 1. This number you're going to try to get to be a 0. This number you're going to try to get to be a 0. And then this number, whatever it turns out to be, so let's just say the solution here was like, I don't know, negative 8. Well, that means that x, okay, is equal to negative 8. So you would write x equal negative 8. And then eventually you want your system to look like this. Okay, and I'll explain what's going on right now. Maybe 14, 0, 0, 1, and let's just say 3. What you want to do is you want this all this here to end up looking like this, with a 1 here diagonally. Okay, 1, 1, 1. You want the 1's to be diagonal. And you want everything else to be zeros. What you're doing is you're eliminating the coefficients here. Well, all you're left with here is 1x, so this would be x is equal to, in this case here, -8. So this would be like your x column, this would be your y column, and this would be your z column. So here y would be equal to 14. And over here z is equal to 3. Okay. Well, this is not the answer to this right here, but we're about to do it. So let me get rid of this right here. I'll explain as I'm going along with the problem how to do this, because it's not quite that simple. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get a 1 in the top left corner. Well, it's already there. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead, and the next step we want to do is get a 0 here. Well, to get a 0 here, what you want to do in this case here is you can multiply the top by -2, and what you're going to do is add the top row to the second row. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. First, we're going to write the top row like this: 1, -2, 3, 7. I'm going to multiply the top row times -2. Okay, so -2 times row 1 plus row 2. Okay. Now watch what happens. If I multiply this times -2, I'm going to get -2 here. I'm going to get a +4 here, and -6 here, and this one over here is going to be -14. Okay. Now if I add this row now, -2 plus 2, I get a 0, right? So let me write a 0 there. Then 4 plus 1 is going to be 5. -6 plus 1 is going to be -5, and -14 plus 4 is going to be a -10. Okay, and then I'll just go ahead and write down the rest of these numbers down here. So -3, 2, -2, and -10. Okay, now there's a strategy to this. Okay, the strategy is this. What you want to do is you want to get the 1 here first, then you want to get a 0 here, and then you want to get a 0 here. So initially when you construct everything, okay, this is just step number 1. What you're going to do is this pattern, and you're going to do all the math behind it. You want to get a 1, then you want to get a 0, then a 0. Then get this one, then fill in these zeros. Then get this one, fill in these zeros. And these numbers will automatically appear, so don't worry about it. That's the method we're using, you see? So step 1 would be right here. So I'm just going to do this again in red so you see it. The first thing we're going to do is get a 1 here. Then we're going to get the 0 here, and then a 0 here. So as you can see here, I did the 1, then we got a 0, and then we're going to get a 0. So basically what you're doing is this. Every time you go from one column to the next, you're trying to find a 1. 1 goes here, then the 1 goes here, then a 1 goes here. So you're just doing this. 1 here, then fill in the zeros, then a 1 here, and then you're doing a 1 here and then getting the rest zeros. Okay, so followed by a 1, zeros, you got to fill in zeros on the rest of the places on the column. Okay, so just want to make sure you guys get that. Alright, so let's do the next step here. So now we want to get a 0 here. Well, to get a 0 here, what you could do is you can multiply the top row by 3. Okay, so since we're using red, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to multiply the top row by 3, and then I'm going to add it to the bottom row. This is going to change. All I want to do is get a 0 here, so everything else will, the numbers will change, so we're not worried about that. So now let's do that. So top row by, we're going to multiply the top row by 3. Okay, so before I do that, let me start copying it. Let me copy this over again. -10. Now this is a row we're going to change, right? Okay, so what I want to do is I want to multiply the top row by 3. So 3 times the top row plus row 3. Okay, and then the numbers will appear here. So let me go ahead and write these in right here. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times -2 is -6. 3 times 3 is 9. And 3 times 7 is 21. Okay, so now I'm going to add this new row 1, okay, basically, to to this row 3 here. So it's going to give me this. 3 plus negative 3 is 0. You see? I got the 1 first, then a 0 here, then a 0 here. So now we're going to go ahead and add these two over here. Negative 6 and 2 is negative 4. 9 and negative 2 is going to give me a 7. And 21 and negative 10 is an 11. Okay, so far that's what's happening. So as you can see, when I write something here, like negative 2, what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I'm going to, on the next step, so basically I can kind of write this if you want to. That's going to change over here. Then this is going to change over here. Actually, let me do that in red. So this is going to change over here. Now, something else is going to change. We want a 1 to appear here.